What's up, y'all? It's Blayce. Today I want to talk about something that's very deeply and incredibly important to all of us, which is why you should have hope for the future of the United States. There's a lot going on. Today's No King's Day. There have been authoritarian power grabs in our government by the administration, and I know things can seem very bleak, but today I'm going to talk about a few reasons why I think it's so important to have hope for the future and a few things that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable in that aspect. Today is No King's Day. It's No King's Day 2.0. It's the second time we're doing this, and it's set to be the biggest protest in the United States history. So I think that's incredible. I'm going to be out there with my friends. And just ahead of that, I wanted to give some reasons why I think it's so important to have hope. So all around the world right now, we are seeing Gen Z, specifically these young people are all around the world. We are seeing them step into their power. Young people are more involved than we've ever been. And, the people who are being radicalized on a daily basis right now by the corruption of different governments, by nepotism, by the lack of opportunities, we're going to be, politically active for the rest of our lives because of this. Some examples of this are Nepal, Morocco, Madagascar, Peru. There are widespread protests happening in all of these countries, and they are led by the youth. They are led by the Gen Z generation who are now coming of age. And, we want better for ourselves, and we want better for the future. We want better for all of it. It's important to realize what we can learn from this and why we should have hope from this. This is something that we've never seen anything like this on a global scale like this ever in the history of humankind, specifically with the use of social media. Social media, chat platforms, forums, they allow for rapid mobilization. They allow, for people to coordinate these events in a very short time on an incredible scale. And it's never been more possible to do something like that than today in 2025. And more so than that, they allow cross-border inspiration, meaning that, the youth in this country see what's happening in Nepal, Peru, Morocco, Madagascar, and we are able to be inspired by those movements and learn from what they did in order to bring that here. And so I can clearly see that that is happening in the United States, and it's going to continue happening. And I'm very excited for the future when it comes to that, because I know that that will continue being a safeguard for our people in the future. Furthermore, a meme or a flag can travel, like the One Piece flag, for example. It's something that has been widespread in almost all of these nations where people are rising up and protesting their rights, specifically young people. I think the reason we should gain hope from that is because it's going to start and cultivate a global protest culture. It's going to radicalize individuals for the rest of our lives. And for the rest of our lifetimes, there are going to be people who stand up for what's right and who are conscious about, the political climate and the state of the world. So yeah, I think that's important. Another reason why I think we should have hope is because hope itself is our first and our last line of defense against tyranny. Hope is essential because it is the fuel for our resistance. Another reason why we should have hope is because hope itself is our first and last line of defense against tyranny. Without hope that things can change, people aren't going to go protest. People aren't going to organize. What tyranny does is it thrives on despair. It thrives on the lack of hope. It thrives when hope is crushed. Whenever there is still hope, what that means is that the people have not surrendered yet. The population has not surrendered yet. And as long as there's hope for change and hope for better, tyranny cannot fully thrive and survive, because it means that change is always possible. And as long as people have hope for change, people will continue to resist. Hope is so dangerous itself to tyranny. That's their whole playbook, is to crush hope and make you think that nothing is going to change. But that's not true. And if we all organize, then we can actually make change happen for the better. And so I think one of the reasons we should have hope is purely because hope is good for us. Hope is good for the resistance. I'm not an expert on the psychological effects of it, but I also know that hope and happiness is a choice, and it's a mindset. And, having hope for the future and having hope that the world can change is not just something that is important to the movement, but it's also important to you in your own life in order to achieve your own goals. But yeah, hope for the United States is very important, because without hope, it can be very muddy, and it'll make it easier for us to be controlled. And another bonus point I want to talk about is, we know what we're fighting against. We're fighting against oppression. We're fighting against tyranny. We're fighting against authoritarian power grabs. But what are we fighting for? What are you fighting for? That's a question all of us have to ask ourselves. In my opinion, we are fighting for culture. We are fighting for music, and we are fighting for art. We are fighting for the freedom to express ourselves any way we want to. And, if I make protest music and that becomes illegal, then now I can't express myself the way I want to. So what are we fighting for? We are fighting for the right to express and the right to creativity, because any active expression and active creativity we have, that is only possible in a world without tyranny. And in a world with censorship and oppression, where art and artists can't freely evolve, then that would be a detriment to all of us. That would be a detriment to the culture and the art and the creativity that has, created our whole civilization and everything we've built towards. If we don't have that, what are we fighting for? It's important to have that freedom to express ourselves. That's another thing that authoritarianism sees as a threat to its control. Furthermore, we are fighting for the future of all of us. We are fighting for the planet and a sustainable world. There are ideas like solar punk or eco-socialism or living in a post-neoliberal or a post-capitalist world. And those visions and those ideas are what we gear our mindsets to in order to create that change. If you don't remember what you're fighting for, then, the cycle of violence will continue. And, it's important to fight against tyranny. It's important to want to erase that whole system of corruption. And it's also important to have a plan for after that. And after we do away with the corruption in the world, what are the next steps of rebuilding and reconstructing our society in a way that's beneficial to everyone, including us and the people who come after us? And yeah, there's a lot of, interesting concepts like a library society. I personally am a fan of solar punk, where humans will live in coexistence with the technology we've created in order to create sustainable agricultural systems. I love the idea of food forests and permaculture being integral to our society so that we all have the food and the resources that we need. Yeah, there's a million things going on. And, if you have any ideas about this, I would love to hear them, because imagining a better world for all of us and what that looks like is the first step in fighting back against this oppression, because that's where that hope for change comes. And, if you can imagine a better future, that is hope. That is what hope is. So yeah, keep imagining that. Keep, creating these ideas. If anyone has any opinions about this, I'm very open to it. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Maybe we'll do some kind of collab. So yeah, in conclusion, those are some of the reasons why I think you should have hope for the future of the United States and the future of the world, and just hope in your own life. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for listening. I've been working on a bunch of big stuff and different stuff. Those who know me know that I've become very politically aware in the past few months. My music has changed to represent that and reflect that. My daily life and everything I do is reflecting that and starting to reflect that. I'm very active in different communities and different organizations doing things for the people and for our city in Austin. I'm working on something huge. It's called Music for the Revolution. It's going to be a project, probably a mixtape or an EP or something that I want to spread. And, I want to get as many eyes on that as possible. And also, Music for the Revolution is going to be the biggest show I've ever done up to this point. I don't have a date or a time yet. Right now I'm working out, the specifics, but I want to have members from organizations speaking. I want people to be getting registered to vote at the show. I want to have music that showcases the importance of this culture and this art that we are making, and I want to showcase music that reflects that, specifically hip hop to start off. But there's a lot of scenes like the punk rock scene and the indie rock where people feel the same way we do. But yeah, you guys are going to hear more about that. Music for the Revolution, coming soon. You guys are going to see the announcements. And yeah, hopefully it's something that, becomes way bigger than me. We did Independent Rapper Day, a couple months ago in July, where we actually made a holiday. And so, Music for the Revolution Volume 1 is something I want to be even bigger than that. and, you know, something that will continue on in my life and hopefully be some of the biggest hip-hop organizing in all of Austin or all of Texas, maybe all of the world. I don't know. But we'll see. We're going to keep, you know, planning and continuing that. And yeah, I appreciate everyone who's watching these videos. I appreciate everyone who's tuning in. If you have any opinions, I appreciate, you know, any comments you might leave or anything you might tell me. And yeah, I hope that, you know, we can continue having hope for the world, because it's very important to all of us. Yeah, my name's Blayce. Y'all have a nice day. I love y'all, and I wish for you nothing but abundance today.